Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
live streaming? Any apologies? Declarations of interest, folks. You happy enough to take those as proceed? Everyone happy enough? The first an information item, the progress on department business plan, environmental health and environmental services. Olga, it's really only for noting. Nothing anyone want to raise regarding items? Don't see any hands. Everyone happy enough? Thank you. Item 4.1, Council's response to the Assembly Committee for Communities call for views on the private tenancies bill, presented by Gillian.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. I draw your attention to this item. The recommendation is that members respectively approve this response to the Assembly Committee in their call for views on the private tenancies order. Members, quite unusually, we have submitted a response ahead of this council meeting. There is a 4-week turnaround time normally on committee call for views, and given the importance of this area, housing area, to the work of the Environmental Health Department, we have moved ahead with submitting a technical response. Obviously, members, with the caveat that any further comments from this evening's meeting or council will be forwarded. Members, the response is there. It is of a technical nature. It is around really the steps which the Environmental Health Department feel are necessary to improve conditions and improve the rights of tenants, also balancing against that, against the needs of landlords. And you'll see the main clauses there are really around tenancy agreements, the payment of rent deposits, also issues around what we see as welcome improvements to safety standards in rented accommodation. You will note that the comment is also made that we don't believe this goes far enough, as this council back in 2017, I believe, we submitted a response asking for a full review of the housing fitness standard. That has not come forward in this piece of legislation. It may come forward in future legislation reviews by the Assembly, but as a council, we still call for that. Members, I would also draw your attention to the comments made in the report 4.1.3, the financial and resource implications. Members, these additional duties will come to council, I imagine, and they will increase the workload of the Environmental Health Department. We would, of course, like to think there may be some additional financial support for councils, but that's not guaranteed. And so I would draw your attention to the potential for the impact on our current resource and what that might mean in the forward. So members, I do recommend to you the response as already submitted, and happy, of course, to amend as you would see fit. Thank you.
Anyone, any questions? Don't see any hands up. Councillor Pope.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a quick one. Gillian, just within the response, sorry, I know the paper came on quite late there. I hadn't read all the way through it. You were saying about having a budget. Does the response include for a budget for that additional work, or could that be added, please?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Yes, that that should be added into the paper. I noticed that myself, that there wasn't really enough weight in the response around that point, and if members agree, certainly I can add that into the survey.
Thank you.
There's no other hands up. Can I have a proposer and a seconder that we accept the recommendation proposed by Councillor Baxter, seconded by Councillor Pope? Everyone happy enough? The next item is 4.2, Council response to Department of Communities in relation to the regulation of gambling in Northern Ireland. Hand over to Gillian again, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, members, we can see the legislative progress really that the Assembly are trying to achieve in another call for reviews here in relation to the regulation of gambling. I would comment, members, that actually in terms of the review of the legislation, there really is only a very, very small amount which comes under council remit. That would be in terms of regulation of society lotteries and around the issue of amusement permits. And in the appendix response, I have already made some small comments on that matter. The substantive nature of this, the rest of the legislation is really around the regulation, as it says, of gambling, and in particular trying to update the regulations, the order, to a more modern approach, and also really looking at the issue of online gambling and maybe some of the protections from harm, which I know have been in the media over the past while because of this particular bill. Members, it's my understanding that during the consultation notification out from member services, that some members indicated they may wish to make additional comments on this piece of legislation from a societal point of view. And therefore, members, that's why I have left the appendix response open for any other additional comments that members may wish to bring forward. So I'm in your hands in terms of anything additional. Thank you, members.
Anyone, any questions? Don't see any hands up. All right, Councillor Baxter.
Can I just suggest, Chair, that maybe before it goes to council, well, it'll be going to council at the end of the month anyhow, that if there's any comments from members, we could just maybe feed them through to Gillian, or in the meantime, and then just ratify it at the end of the month. Then just give me a better.
Be enough for that, Gillian?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Chair. Just checking on any closure date for this. I don't have a closure date in front of me. We could run into a few issues in that regard, but I could do the same in terms of the private tenancies. But I do appreciate that I was led to believe there may be some member comment on it.
Have enough, Councillor Baxter?
Yeah, it would have to be ratified by council anyway. I know there's a retrospective one before, but they're still moving to change that then, because I'm not very comfortable with retrospective approvals, because it really means you've done it before. I don't know how quickly this came to before council or whatever, but we're a bit concerned about those, in general, just a general point really, but happy enough if we can make, maybe if there's any amendments, we can make them the next few days even. Thanks.
Happy enough, Gillian?
Yes, thank you. Happy to receive any comments and to add those to report and take it back into full council. We will speak with Democratic Services on how to do that. And certainly retrospective is not something we'd want to do. I think simply it is around the time frame being dealt with through the Northern Ireland Assembly. These things tend to give you a 4-week call for review, and we can miss the committee cycle very easily in that regard. So I'll certainly speak to member services how to bring this back through to allow members the time to input.
Thank you, members. If there's no further hands up, can I have a proposer and a seconder to accept the recommendation? Anyone propose to accept the recommendation? Councillor Duffy.
I'll propose the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you.
Happy to second, Chair.
Where'd that come from? Jill?
Councillor High.
Councillor High. Proposed by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor High. We accept the recommendation. Item 4.3 is an information item regarding the control and sale of fireworks. Anyone? Councillor Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I suppose this report came about just as a result of a motion that we brought to Council last week. And look, whilst I appreciate the effort that has gone into the report, it does miss the sentiment of the motion. And it's just disappointing, that officers didn't reach out to me as the person that brought the motion, because it's very much weighted towards regulation. And I'm not asking Council to regulate fireworks. What I was asking through the motion was around encouragement and education around the impact that fireworks have on vulnerable people and on animals. Encouraging people who were having firework displays, be it our big annual one or indeed other firework displays for other occasions and events, to let Council know so that we could get those out through our channels, because we obviously have a wide audience through the channels that we have available to us. Also to write a letter as well to the Assembly the Executive, urging them to introduce legislation to limit the maximum noise level of fireworks. So I do appreciate the work that's gone on around employment. It's all about the regulation and how it's done, but the sentiment of the motion just has been missed slightly and somewhat, in the sense that it's very much about informing, encouragement, education around fireworks, what we as a council can do to protect vulnerable people, animals, at this time of the year and at other times when people use fireworks. So I suppose I would propose that that we look again at this report. It doesn't have to be for the full council meeting, but even for the next committee, and look at some action points as to how we could touch base with different groups and encourage them to let us know when they're having a firework display, how we can do some sort of a campaign on the impact fireworks have on the vulnerable and animals, and also would propose that we write to the Executive to urge them to look at this issue as well. So I would like to make that a proposal, Chair.
Alderman Ridley's looking in here as well.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just have a wee bit of clarity around Councillor Nelson, what our proposal exactly is? Sorry, I just didn't catch it all.
Yes, I suppose it's threefold, Alderman Maitre. So the first one would be to engage with groups that we know exist, to encourage them to let us know if there's a firework display going on, so that we can get communication out through our communication channels. The second point would be looking at Council devising a campaign to create awareness of the impact fireworks have on the vulnerable and on animals. And the third point would be that we would write to the Executive to, I suppose, ask for their support and backing on an awareness campaign around the impact fireworks have on the vulnerable, noisy fireworks in particular, on the vulnerable and on animals.
Sure, if I can come back in there, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm happy to second that proposal. I have no problem with what Councillor Nelson says, although having just come through the last weekend here, and as I said tonight, there are still fireworks going off here. I'm much more concerned with those who I suspect are trading illegally in fireworks and letting off illegal ones. So I think we should try to, extend the remit, if we're going to look at this, maybe just a wee bit further.
Councillor Nelson, are you happy enough with that?
Yes, absolutely, Chair.
Councillor Macaulay has her hand up.
Yes, Chair, thank you. No, it's just really a footnote on that point that I know as Chair of PCSP, we were doing a number of initiatives there to raise awareness on a safe Halloween. I was involved in a couple of those campaigns as well. So it was just to say that there definitely was messaging coming out from the council level and the PCSP on that and safe. But I am very much aware that most fireworks displays probably are coming out of unlawful sort of backgrounds and backyards and people using them sort of obviously not for the purposes of entertainment in the proper sense. So just to say that I was happy enough just with the messaging that was coming from PCSP as well. Thank you.
Everyone happy enough with that, folks? Hand over to Gillian. Are you happy enough, Gillian, to follow that through?
Thank you, Chair. Just may I clarify a further report at the next committee to pick up those comments? Is that the intention, that the proposal?
Yeah, I think that's just to bring a further update at the next committee to see where we'll go from there. You're happy enough?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Item 5.1, request from the RSPB. We'll hand over to Barry.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. Can't ever quite get there. I press these buttons too early. Yes, as the Chair says, it's a request from the RSPB that they'll be allowed to have a stall at Tannymore Gardens over a period of time to raise awareness and gather funds. So that's really the detail of the report. I'm happy to take any questions, members. It's for a short period of time and it's for those specified times.
Yeah, happy to propose, Chair.
Seconded by Councillor Greenfield. Thank you. (5.2) planting trees in remembrance of COVID victims. Barry.
Camera press goes back again. Press again. I mean, now, every time I start speaking, it goes off. It's like being at home again. Members will know that we have talked about this at different stages about a way of commemorating those who have lost their lives during COVID. This is just an update report, members, to let you know that's still progressing. The idea is still the same, that we would plant trees along the canal that goes along the historic A and the B and the C. We are just waiting to hear back from the Department of Communities Historic Environmental Division, as the canal is historic and is classed as a monument. So we hope to get feedback from them in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be able to bring you a full report, members. Thank you, Chair.
Everyone happy enough with that? We'll find out more when more information comes to light. There's no hands up, so happy enough to move on to. Oh, sorry. Councillor Baxter.
Greenfield was first, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Barry, for the update. Barry, just I suppose, just ask a simple question. And obviously, the sentiments this we certainly agree with, and it's something that has been worked on for a while. I'm just cautious of still a lot of COVID about, unfortunately, still fatalities across our borough. Are we okay, Barry, with if this is if someone comes along, I know with a date there of October, and that this can be something that can be added to for, I'm sure, unfortunately, there's been people since that, and the way things are going, just want to give us an update, Barry, on that. Thank you.
All right, do you want to come back in? It's really, there's no limit to it, Councillor Greenfield. It's an open, there's no names or there's nothing like that to it, you know, it's just been open. But if Barry wants to come in there.
Yes, Chair, you're quite right. We aren't being too prescriptive about the numbers. We will have adequate numbers. If we are unfortunate enough to have this for a number of years, then there will be capacity to add to that if members wish year on year. Hopefully the numbers will go down. At some point, again, when members have decided and when we get to a point that we're content that we're going to put something in, it won't probably mention numbers. It will just mention the sad loss of life due to COVID because of it. So it will be, as the Chair had said, it won't be identified as individuals. It'll be for the commemoration of those people.
Mr. Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just digress slightly? Barry, just when it's fresh in my head when we're talking about trees. I was doing a bit of work with the housing executive recently in terms of trying to get things, and he was telling me about the ash trees, the dieback. Apparently, that's, as council, have we already discussed? Have we already done a report on this and with the ash trees that council have? Because he painted a very bleak picture of what it's going to do to the ash tree population right the country. He talked about 90% loss right across, where trees will be rotting on the inside. I'm just thinking from a health and safety point of view and from a financial point of view as well, because I know it's costing the housing executive quite a bit of money, just in terms of what the council are doing and what going forward on that one. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is here. It is with us. There are a number of trees that will be affected. Those are being monitored by the biodiversity team. In relation to quantifying that, no, we haven't brought a report to committee. And the other strange thing about the disease is it doesn't naturally kill the trees. It pushes them back. It makes them die back, and then they can grow back. So you may lose 80% or you may lose less than that. It also depends on how close the trees are together, etc. So if members wish there to be a report brought back specifically about council trees, we can pull something together for that, Chair.
Yeah, no, honestly, Chair, thanks for bringing me back on it. I don't think we need a report on it, Barry. I was just concerned. We just really want to know what's on the council's radar, and we're aware of it because, you know, when I did have my meetings with the housing executive, they were very concerned. They're putting quite a bit of resource into it actually about what they have to do. Obviously, they would probably have a lot more probably than we would right across the borough. But it's on the radar. I'm happy enough that you know about it.
So. Everyone happy enough? We'll move on. Item 5.3, Roads Verde Pilot Scheme, reference planting of wildflowers. Back over to Barry again.
Thank you, Chair. This relates to a number of questions that members had asked at full council last Monday night. And it's just really an update report. There is obviously a detailed report attached to that. It goes through the fact that in 2019 we had 4 areas that had the roadsides were left, and then we were cutting those back and taking the grass away. And the idea is that the seed would drop onto the ground and it would self-regulate itself. That was then added to those different locations that are below there in 5.3.2, and that has continued. It's not for just aesthetic reasons, obviously. We are monitoring the biodiversity levels, and Marcus, who's here this evening, and his team have been doing that. And it's about putting signage out so that people understand that we aren't just leaving this because we're not cutting it. We're leaving it because we are maintaining it in a different way. Now, if members, and this is where we will bring a further report back to members, if this is something that members are minded to extend, then the machinery that we have at the minute isn't actually ideal for it. So as you would imagine, most of our grass cutting is to keep grass short, whereas the machinery that we use to do this, it deliberately leaves the grass high, then cuts it, and then has to take it off. We don't really have machinery to do that on a large scale. So what we're proposing is we'll bring back a report detailing what that would mean, what it would mean in relation to machinery, what it would mean in relation to staff time, in relation to the surveys, etc. Marcus is here to answer any technical questions, but if there's general questions, I'll try my best to go through them with you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hohan has his light on.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Barry and Marcus, for the report. Yeah, look, this has been dragging on for far too long. I understand the point made around COVID, and it's impacted quite a lot of things. I thought when this motion was brought forward by our party that it would have been relatively simple. It could have been a positive news story, but instead we're just getting a report that just seems so convoluted and so complicated when it doesn't seem necessary. It reads as if we're the first council to ever actually do this. So I suppose my question would be, why 2.5 years later are we trying to figure out what machinery we need, how much it will cost, where should we plant it, why should we not? Are we seriously saying we couldn't have contacted another council to ask, like Belfast City Council, somewhere in the north, to say, have you done this? What worked, what didn't work? It's just so frustrating that when a motion is passed by this council and it had unanimous support, that 2.5 years later we're waiting on information coming back, really basic information. So it's hugely frustrating. I hope the report that you're talking about, Barry, comes back next month, because I would imagine it shouldn't be too hard to figure out from all the councils, north and south, in England, Scotland, Wales. I'm sure we'll be able to figure out quite quickly that other councils have done this, done it successfully. There hasn't been complications, I'm sure, and if there was, we can learn from their mistakes. So while I welcome this report being brought, it is once again to express my utter frustration with this. That should be simple, straightforward, and there's nothing I've seen here. There's literally nothing I've seen in this report that should take 2.5 years. And COVID, fair enough, but 2.5 years to come up with how do we cut grass that's longer than normal, I don't think that's good enough, to be honest. So really, I hope there's a new impetus around this. I hope the officers involved understand that this is frustrating for members right across all political parties. We need this done. We told our constituents this would be done. All of us, right across the parties have said this will be appearing. It hasn't. It's been very poor. So I would hope that the report with all these details is going to be forthcoming pretty soon. So yeah, thanks.
Councillor Barry, maybe you want to come in on that? Or
yes, certainly the report that will be coming back will have a lot more detail in it, and we'll detail those. It's not that we don't know how to do it, and it's not that we haven't looked at other people, and we have done it now, and that'll be 8 different areas. That doesn't obviously include the wildflowers that we have in our parks and open spaces. That's slightly different, and that is managed differently. So it is a matter of, we will bring that report back with the detail as the member has requested. Yeah, certainly.
Councillor Haha, you had your light on there. It's now down. Are you happy enough?
Yeah, I'm content. Councillor Hohan has covered all bases. Thank you.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. And I think, yeah, it's a very worthwhile thing I think we're doing for biodiversity and for all those things that have been discussed at length over this last couple of years.
Councillor Baxter, could you just start again there, please? We're a wee bit soon off the mark.
Can you hear me now? Okay. The gremlins are still here after Halloween, it seems, this evening. the quicker we're all back in the chamber, I think, the better, Chair. Now that the social distancing has been maybe amended, that may be something we could look at, but that's beside the point. I think in terms of this, the biodiversity and all that we're discussing, yeah, very, very worthwhile. I think it's a great scheme. I do share frustrations that it's maybe taken that long to get to this stage. I think when we did discuss it at the time, I think certainly the public perception is that there would be wildflower verges. Whereas now I think we're really just letting the grass grow and letting wild grasses grow. And there's, a lot of those places, and I'm thinking of the Donaghmore in particular, there's no wildflowers as such. There's one or two, but there's no colour. I think when people seen this and, it was put out in the press, they were expecting, like the wildflower matters were saying, Bachelor's Walk and Portadown or something. And I do read in the report there that some sites we maybe can plant some wildflower seeds, because I certainly think that would certainly help the look of it. And it just wouldn't look like they just haven't bothered to cut it. It would look like, actually, this is a biodiversity strip. We're bringing some of the native, flowers into the thing and help the bees and help all that things that, it's supposed to do. I think that's certainly a public perception, Barry. And I know you have said in the report there that some sites, a very few sites might benefit from some sowing of seed. But I think that would be something that maybe looked at even more, because certainly that's what the public probably want to see. It brightens the place up as well as being very beneficial for the environment. Thanks.
Barry, you want to respond, please?
Yes, Chair. Certainly, we can include that. Yeah, we had a discussion about what is a wildflower, and I think that's maybe the public perception and what is actually a wildflower is different. But certainly, we look at that and we'll include that in the next report.
Everyone happy enough? Sorry, there's Councillor Nicholson who's come in late here with the light.
Thanks, Chair, and apologies for being late. And Barry, thanks for your report. And as I say, I welcome that this report has now appeared in front of committee. Barry, can you just clarify what research you've done in relation to what maintenance is required on if it's wildflower? Because as I understand, it still needs to be cut. Is that correct? And I suppose is this what you're proposing? As Councillor Baxter says, it wouldn't need to be cut. This would just grow wild and to a certain height, or how do you control that as a sort of for visibility and things like that, as along verges and junctions and things like that. So we have more detail on that, Barry, if you could, please.
All right, you come back in there, please.
Somebody with a torch. That's still Sam. Well, my light's on, but it's not there. Okay. Sam, we could see you with a light there. I hope it was you. Yes, I mean, no matter if it's wildflowers that we plant now or the wildflowers that grow naturally, they're cut once a year. So, I mean, generally what it is a bit like your flowers in your garden. They will grow, they will flower, and then they will go to seed, and then the seed falls on the ground. And once the seed has fallen on the ground, that's the time that you cut wildflowers. It's very important that you just cut it and let it sit. You cut it and take it away, because wildflowers don't actually like fertile soil. So if you were, for example, just to cut them and let it sit, then that actually adds to the fertility of the soil, which is not good for the wildflowers. So it doesn't actually matter if it's wildflowers that you plant and you put in as seed, or that it's wildflowers that naturally occur if you don't cut the grass. As you go on through time, if you keep letting the grass grow and cutting it and taking it away, wildflowers will naturally propagate into that area, and that's what we were doing on the road verges. In relation to sight lines and stuff, you're quite right. We wouldn't plant any of these in anywhere where there would be a sight line issue, because they do have to grow to a height. So some of them will be, 2-3 feet. So obviously we wouldn't do that on sight lines or anything like that.
Have enough, Councillor Nicholson?
Yes, thanks, Barry, and thanks, Chair. Yeah, thank you.
No further lights on. Move on, folks. Can I have a proposer or seconder to go into committee for confidential business? Opposed, Councillor Greenfield. Seconder. Seconder, Councillor Baxter. Members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into confidential session of council. This means that we'll be turning off the public feed of the meeting. This will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask IT, please, to turn off feed and confirm when they have done so? Thank you, Danny. There are no items of correspondence. I've just been informed of one AOB, allotment provision within the borough. Councillor Tennyson was looking in on that one, but I think there is no council has no provision of their own, but there's a few outside bodies has it. So Councillor Tennyson wants to come in on that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I am aware that council has limited, if any, involvement at all in allotment provision locally. But it's something that's been raised with me actually quite a bit over the course of the last couple of years during lockdown, that a lot of people have expressed an interest in getting involved with an allotment, but they're not sure either where their local allotment is, or maybe there isn't one at all. So really the request tonight is just that a report would come back evaluating the current position, maybe considering what other councils are doing in terms of allotments and considering what we can do. That doesn't necessarily actually have to mean that council itself operates and sets up allotments, but I know, for example, there's funding coming from the Department for Infrastructure for allotment projects, and it might even just be something that we can do in terms of coordinating an online survey to identify where there's need, or connect people into the relevant schemes that they need to be involved in to set up their own allotment. So it really is just to look into what we can feasibly do in terms of raising awareness, signposting people, and doing that piece of consultation as well to see if there's anything that we can do to help our community allotment provision along a little bit, and build upon some of the great work that some of the local organisations are already doing. Thank you, Chair.
Everyone happy enough that the officers look into that and bring back a report to a further meeting? A few heads nodding there, everyone happy enough? Thank you. Right, folks, that's the end of the agenda for this evening. Thank you all for turning up in the chamber, or ever did, anyone tuned in online. A big thanks again to the officers, Carl and Co, and Danny and all for facilitating it. Thanks for